The final theorist that we'll consider today is the work of Erving Goffman, who lived between 1922 and 1982. Goffman was originally a Canadian, trained in the U.S., and in fact lived out most of his life as an academic in the U.S. Some of the most important work on the presentation of self in everyday social interaction is the result of Goffman's work. Goffman was known for his work on the ways in which people conduct themselves during social encounters, and his work really helps us to understand the often taken for granted aspects of and the conventional views about human social interaction. One of the most important metaphors that Goffman provided us with for thinking about social interaction is the dramaturgical method, dramaturgical metaphor. Goffman thought about, studied, analyzed social interactions as performances. He compared social life to a series of performances given by actors on a stage. He said these social performances have both manifest and latent symbolic references. Manifest in the sense that they're obvious, latent in the sense that they aren't obviously there. When we act, when we interact with each other, we actually perform on stage. And Goffman took this metaphor quite far. He talked about the front stage, that part of the social performance that's used to define the situation in a general way for an audience. He talked about the backstage, where whatever is pertinent to the performance but not allowed on the front stage might appear. Backstage behavior was depicted by Goffman as comfortable and relaxed because the audience absent. Goffman also talked about impression management, which he defined as the activity engaged in by a performer in order to guard against the unexpected, such as unintended gestures, improper use of language, and any social faux pas, such as dressing for an occasion in inappropriate clothing. He was interested in various methods social actors use to consciously manage what he said were the impressions they give others, compared to the impressions that they unwittingly give off. And a lot of what people engage in is an attempt to control, actively give an impression, and to make sure that they've got anything that would interfere with that impression under control. Goffman also talked about settings, that is, the physical props and scenery that have to be present if a social actor is to give a credible performance. For example, if you go into a hospital, into the emergency room in the hospital, the credible performance of the triage nurse is in part dependent on the kinds of physical props that are there, the stethoscope that she might have around her neck, the computer that she's sitting at to put your information into. Goffman talked about personal fronts, the props that an actor needs to make his audience believe the role that they're playing is genuine. Personal fronts are often institutionalized. When a professor stands up in front of a classroom, some of the props that they use as part of their personal front would be the chalkboard, the chalk that they have in their hand, the control over the PowerPoint, and so on. Appearance, it also is important. Props used by social actors to indicate their status. For example, a doctor's lab coat might signify that this person is in authority and should be taken seriously. And finally, the manner that an individual actor uses to convey to the audience that they actually are in a role to which they have the authority to occupy is an important aspect that Goffman also points to.